Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, boys and girls. It is once again that time. It is once again this time. It is once again now. And now it is happening because it is right around 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and it is 7 o'clock in Texas, and we are live on Facebook. And why are we live? Because we are recording the Raw Islam podcast with the hardest working imam that I know. I just want to make sure he looks up before I transfer. There he is, Imam Azhar.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to all our listeners on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and those who are streaming it across the world. We welcome you to our first episode of Raw Islam in the year 2019. It seems like, it seems like we've come a long way from the Fred Flintstone days that we started this podcast, and the Jetsons came in between, and now we're kind of in between the two of them. For those who understand Flintstones and Jetsons will understand what I'm saying. But alhamdulillah, it's nice to be back. We did have an extended break. We had some personal family related obligations that we had to fulfill. And alhamdulillah, we're fresh, we're back, and we are ever so energized to engage with you, our listener, as we continue this model, which is a bit unique than the present models that we have. We feel that to spark dialogues and discussions and to uphold goodness and to bring perspective to things happening in our world that we all live in, it's imperative for these discussions to happen everywhere and not exclusively somewhere. So that's why Raw Islam took off a little over a year ago, where we wanted to really make sure that we brought education to you so that you can take education to the world. And that's why we want to peel the onion and come to the core of what Islam says in regards to issues pertaining to the faith, and at the same time, what weight Islam has in the issues that you and I may deem not to be a part of the faith. So, after giving you a history of Islam in 2019 as we continue our quest and our journey towards great heights and better discussions. I want to give it back to Brother Carl, and he's going to let us know the result of our weekly Twitter poll. As you know, we made a determination a few months ago that we want to not just discuss issues that we saw to be important, but we want your input in those issues also. And if you saw something to be something of more importance, we would always take that as a preference and a priority over anything else. And so, Hamza, we sent out a poll earlier this week as to what should be the topic of discussion. Brother Carl, tell us what happened.
So, Brother Carl is struggling with technology currently, but yes, absolutely. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time or second time or third time, if you don't already know, every week on Monday before the show goes, before we prep for the week, from our Twitter handle, and we work off of the Venn Network Twitter handle. It is VENNNETWORK, Venn Network. Go over to Twitter, follow us there. And again, every Monday we post a poll so that you, the listeners, the followers, the fans of the show, you get to pick the topic that Imam Azhar will discuss the following night on Tuesday. So this week we posted a poll, and our poll was lost. Hold on. That's up on the screen now. But our poll this week was, those MAGA hat kids, do we need Bible Lit 101? And what's the deal with? And in case this is your first night with us or your first episode with us, we post that what's the deal with fairly regularly. It is kind of a grab bag, just whatever happens to be going on that day or whatever we feel like. And as you can clearly see on the screen in front of you, the winner this week was those MAGA hat kids. And do we need Bible Lit 101? It was a 50-50 tie between the two. And there goes the Isha then over at Imam Azhar's place. But yes, so as you can see, it was a 50-50 split between the two. And so tonight we will be discussing those MAGA hat kids, those crazy MAGA hat kids, and Bible Lit 101 and why it's required and why you and your dog need it today. Imam Azhar, back to you.
So I think you'd be great on television sales. I think we need to consider that as a side job for both of us. I think, we could sell tissue boxes and markers, and we could actually make the case for them to be sold. Carl, before I start talking about this, can you quickly tell us which episode is it? What number episode are we on today?
This in particular episode is episode number 73.
MashaAllah. So, for those who are joining us for maybe the first time, we are 73 episodes into this journey of Raw Islam. And if you have never had the opportunity to listen to us before and you have a smartphone, go to your Google Play or your Apple iTunes and you can search Raw Islam with Imam Azhar, which is in the podcast section, and you could subscribe and follow us for free. You can also go to Venn Network, and you can also get an update of each and every episode, and also you could find us on YouTube. Going into this discussion, Carl, I know we've had almost 4 weeks of absence between the holidays in December, New Year's in January, a clash of schedule in the last 2 weeks. But out of all the topics in the news, including the government shutdown, which was a disaster for our nation, I was listening to the news yesterday morning, which, for my listeners, FYI, I'm no longer fixated on the news on an hourly basis as I once was. It was toxic for me, it was toxic for my health, it was toxic for the way I tried to mold my daily life. Because as a human, you need to understand that you should define a path and follow it and not let the incidents happening around you divert you from that path to whatever they deem fit. But I was in a place and I was watching the news and they said that the government has opened. We've lost 8 billion in our economy, 5 billion of which be cannot be brought back. It's impossible to get that money back. 5 billion is gone. That was a cost of the wall. That was the cost of school lunches. That was a cost of effective healthcare. That was a cost of reforming our criminal justice system. It's all gone. Nevertheless, there's a reason why it's gone. There's a reason why it's gone is because our country is continuing to fraction when it comes to supremacy, when it comes to race, when it comes to who is really an American and deserving of the title of a patriot. No, I'm not talking about the New England Patriots, who I pray that they will lose this upcoming Sunday. I'm not an NFL. I'm not a fan of football. I don't follow them, but here in Texas there is a culture, and so I've kind of been touching base with it. But I'm not happy the Patriots are there. But truly, we're talking about who is considered in the eyes of the public as a patriot. So, Carl, out of all that's happened, the news of the MAGA hat incident uh, up in Washington in the mall, which happened to be a clash of protests or a clash of freedom of speech, was an incident that really plagued my mind. Matter of fact, I touched on it in my khutbah in my last week. I didn't talk about the incident directly, but I talked about service, sporadic service compared to a life of service. And I spoke about the elements that are required to be a true servant in humanity. And one of them was respect. So now, for those who recall the incident, there was initially a video that went viral globally. And remember this, it went globally. That there was young kids from a Catholic high school wearing MAGA hats that were disrespectful to one of our elders of our country, one of our native Indian elders who was drumming, and that drumming also has great significance. Uh, and Apparently, there was a lot of anger from those who felt that this wasn't acceptable. I think the mayor of the town or the I believe it's the mayor of the town disconnected, or he issued a statement against the Catholic school and also these children. And I also went off on my Facebook, calling this a despicable portrayal of faith, a despicable portrayal of morals and values. Of course, everyone was angry based on the segment that they saw. Which another video surfaced which showed an extended version of the incident where there were some, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Carl, I think they said Black Israelites is what the word was. Was that the word? There were a bunch of African Israelites who were taunting the children wearing the MAGA hats, and the children in response were chanting and cheering to overshadow their. Apparently, these uh, Israelites of African descent were very derogatory in their statements, in their ways, and it's all documented on the video. You could see that. What happened then? It opened the door for this child, this teenager, to be interviewed by some news outlets, and he gave his version of the story, saying that we were standing in respect of this elder. He wasn't smirking. He was elder to continue drumming and to overshadow the noise and the the rhetoric that was coming from the opposite side. So we got two aspects of the story. We got a picture, then we got a clear picture. Excuse me. All in all, the president, I think, invited him to the White House, which is nice, but there's two issues here to discuss tonight. Excuse me, I've been talking all day. Number one, how can we take a story when in our see from the people that were taunting them? We understand that. But as because actions speak louder than words, I feel that there was an underlining derogatory demeanor towards that elder also. I have no proof, verbally, written, or otherwise, but sometimes you could suss out a person's body. Number two, the fact that they're wearing a MAGA hat. Brother Obaid said something very nice today. The MAGA hat isn't a hat, it's a symbol of hate. It's a symbol of hate. And we have to acknowledge that in our country right now. You don't need to wear a hat or a bandana, or you don't have to wear American underwear, like a flag underwear, and play a
So, for those of you that are watching along on Facebook Live, this is part of the wonderful live technology. We are obviously having a little bit of a connectivity issue. And what'll happen is when we go to edit this and we set this up on YouTube, which it will be, this will be available on YouTube. Uh, this will all be edited out, and it'll be a much shorter, quicker version. And same with the audio version. When we finally release that, that'll be a little bit quicker too. But because we do have the stream, I just want to bring this out and just let everybody know that we seem to be having some connectivity issues. I'm not quite sure why or what is going on. And I'm not sure if I should disconnect and try to reconnect or what we're doing here. But I think that's what we're going to have to do because it looks like everything is just about frozen. Maybe. Maybe not. Oh, wait. Is he back
Yeah,
with us?
the hat in the example of the hat and the hood, the KKK hood.
Yeah. And then it went off.
Okay, so basically, I'll leave it to that. I want to hear back from you and our listeners, please.
Okay. Now I'm really lost. No. So I kind of intentionally avoided this story. And the reason I like intentionally avoided this story was because it was so just utterly muddy. Uh when the initial photo was posted, it looked like, I mean, it's like you said, it looked like something was going on with that one in particular student, and then the longer video surfaced, and you're not really sure who they are. The best comparison that I can make for somebody that doesn't understand is probably Westboro Baptist Church. You know how they stand around and chant and yell and do all that fun stuff? That's kind of the way these Black Israelites are. Um, I kind of intentionally avoided this story because it was so muddy and it was so ugly. But with that being said, if the general thesis or general theory exists of, are the younger kids today lacking some of that respect that we had as children? I know I saw one tweet that was like, if I'd have looked at an older, and it's very true. We were raised not to speak like that to another, or look like that, or act like that to another adult. And unfortunately, one of the things that we are seeing is that acts of violence, especially acts that portray racism, they are kind of followed with a MAGA hat, MAGA flag, MAGA theory. So while I saw this today, actually, not have intentionally been used or designed for a racist purpose, it has been co-opted and is now being used in that light. And it's funny because as I was talking, his video. Oh, wait, there he is. Okay.
So sorry, I just got back. So it seems that we're cutting quite a bit. It's equivalent to the hood of the KKK. You have to accept it, everyone. Please accept it. A hat is not just a symbol. It speaks volumes. You know, and our nation doesn't need that. The mall is a place where people can speak what they want, and that's the beauty of our nation. Martin Luther King spoke at the mall about his dream because our nation allows it. Our cause, that's where you're losing people. Disrespect is unacceptable. And this is what's happening in our nation. You have children disrespect when he stood up for something that they didn't. You don't look into the eyes of an adult. And one thing I liked about this whole incident, Carl, was the discussion of respect resurfaced in our society. It was hope that we're talking about respect at a time when there's no respect to talk about. That gave great hope. That gave really great hope. Unfortunately, we have a lot of work to do. Number two, in addition to the hat speaking what it spoke for, Catholicism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, Christianity's branches, and all other branches of other faith. As a school and an institution, you stand for something more than just education. An Islamic school in America that's teaching Islam values, religion, and academics stands for more than just an 8 to 3 school. The fact that a video surfaced that in the same school during a basketball competition, an African American kid was somewhat taunted with black faced children, like they painted their face black. On Snoops.com, that video is true. It's factual. But the story is, it wasn't racist, it wasn't racial, it was actually something that they do in the school, a black face type of game theme, whatever it was. I don't understand that. But as a religion whose prophet, whose leader Jesus, peace be upon him, broke down racism. Muhammad, peace be upon him, broke down racism. Moses went to the Pharaoh and said, "Give me the Israelites." He broke down that racism and ethnic divide that occurred in his society, which allowed the Pharaoh to enslave people who were as human as he were. Prophets, messengers, or whatever you call them, they fought for something which was beyond themselves. I still, I still hold the school accountable for developing such students. And you could take it to the bank. I hold them accountable. And out of all my Catholic friends I have still yet to hear from someone's response on what I post on Facebook as to how they want to reiterate that these were not the values they stand for. They never talked about it until the lengthier video surfaced, and they never talked about it even after the video surfaced. Now, why am I saying that they need to talk about it? Because everyone wants a Muslim to speak out when an act of terrorism is committed to reinstate what the true values of Islam is. Why can't we hear that from others also? Is it not fair to ask? Or is all other faiths and value systems off territory? Like, don't touch them. Only Islam should be scrutinized and it should be put under the microscope. I don't know, Carl.
So, the one thing that I would add to this, and for me, it seems like there's a loss of history, because what a lot of people, they seem to have forgotten is, and I did the math when this story first came out. I did the math. I think it was 50 years ago, 60 years ago. The American culture treated the Catholics the way that they treat the Muslim now.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it was Kennedy being elected that kind of changed that. But prior to Kennedy being elected, if you said, "Oh, I'm a Catholic," you were shunned, you were pushed out, you were kept out, you were, you were just, I don't know, a social pariah because you were Catholic. And it wasn't all that long ago. I mean, it was really, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Reagan was elected the second time. I'm old enough to remember Reagan. I remember staying up with my mom watching the elections when Reagan was elected for his second term. So, for somebody to say, "Oh yeah, whatever," yeah, you guys were treated like they treat us now not too long ago. So don't get all high and mighty just because, whatever. It wasn't too long ago that you were the ones that they were kicking around and you were the ones that they were insulting. And 50, 60 years ago, when somebody said MAGA, you would have been on the other end of that as a Catholic.
And exactly the problem, Carl, we're seeing a systematic trend across our world that those who were once demonized are now in a position of neutrality. They can either stand on the spectrum of with the masses or remain secluded from the masses. You see them taking, not, and I can't speak for all, but you see this tit for tat. It happened to me. Now I have the opportunity to do it to someone else. The world cannot solve itself like that. We have to stop and stand back and say, where did this cycle begin from of demonizing, and who is always the other? The others have been the natives, the others have been the blacks, the others have been the Japanese, the others have been the Catholics, the others have been, I grew up in England and I studied. I know what happened between the Protestants and the Catholics over there. I am a eyewitness to what transpired there. And I'm not that old. This happened in the 90s. So I need to let you all know that there's always been the other, the other, the other. The question is, who's on the opposite side? Who is the one triggering against the blacks, against the Jews, against the Muslims, against the Hispanics? Who are those people? And when you really focus on that area, it's not a defined people. It's always a cycle. So, and I'm saying this with truth in my heart. Today, the Muslims are victimized. God forbid tomorrow the Muslims become the perpetrators of hatred and tyranny. The natives were victimized. God forbid tomorrow that they do it. The blacks were victimized. God forbid tomorrow they do it. You cannot do it because it was done to you. If you couldn't justify it being right when it was being done to you, you cannot justify it being right when you do it to others. So, again, with Raw Islam, what we try to do is bring out the value system that as a Muslim we stand for in America. Our religion isn't any different than our contribution to any society, including America. We are Americans and we don't need to talk about that. We are contributing to society and we don't have to boast about that. But we, as whoever we are, wherever we are in this nation or across the world, we have a moral, ethical, and if we're religious, a religious responsibility and duty to bring back that goodness and to stop such hatred. Live and let live has to become a motto that has to come in reality. Uh, we are not here to agree with everyone, and we're not here to continue to highlight our disagreements with each and every person. We have to find common ground, and that common ground starts with a word that begins with the letter R, and that's called respect.
Or if you're a fan of Aretha Franklin, it's RESPECT, and that's as much as I'm going to sing about that because that's how it works. But yes, I see that we are at the 30-minute mark, so we are just about out of time. I will throw it back to Imam Azhar one more time before I do my sales pitch for the evening. Imam Azhar, closing thoughts.
So, closing thoughts tonight for our 73rd episode of Raw Islam with Imam Azhar is time to get engaged, everyone. Try to stop talking about incidents and allowing these incidents to happen. We've had 5 officers shot in Houston. We've had a cold vortex come down from the north and it plagued Chicago in the double digit in minus. We've got problems of our own. We have our nation workers, federal workers, 800,000 strong, who are trying to get back on their feet and their jobs, remembering that there is piles of garbage in our national parks, there are toilets that are clogged in our public spaces, and here they're coming back to serve. We got bigger issues to talk about. So it's time to get engaged. It's time to write history that tomorrow will reflect positive image of us. When we read the history of previous nations in the Quran or even a history book, we somewhat not taunt, we somewhat look down on the people that fail to uphold values. Don't let your grandchildren or my grandchildren look down on us tomorrow when they read the history of what we failed to do and not what we did. So we need your voice. We need your thoughts. We want to spark discussions, and we make this a platform where that can be possible. Carl?
I would just like to start my closeout by saying that I have some neighbors that are very into cooking fish on the regular.
Uh-huh.
And right now, my entire house smells like fish, and it's very weird.
Interesting.
Not that that had anything to do with anything else, but I'm sitting here listening to you, looking around, going, what is that smell? Nobody's cooking. Oh, never mind. But anyway, above and beyond all that, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Thank you for tuning in for those that joined us live. Thank you for tuning in for the 73rd episode of the Raw Islam podcast with Imam Azhar. If you would like to catch up on all previous episodes, head over to vennnetwork.org. That's VENNNET, 3 N's in that. Head over to vennnetwork.org. You can find this show, all the back episodes, and a bunch of other amazing shows that are hosted up on our website with all kinds of information about all kinds of things. We look forward to hearing from you guys. You guys are the ones that control the direction of this podcast. So make sure you drop us an email at rawislam@vennnetwork.org. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Venn Network and take part in our poll every Monday afternoon Eastern Standard Time. And lastly, don't forget you can support this network, support this great shows like this, and support other hosts by getting yourself some cool Venn Network swag like I have. And you can also join the Venn Network on Patreon to help support this show and other shows like it. And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will say, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.